Hi there, and welcome to Ambitious Single Moms Stories of Strength and Success. I'm Sonja from Your Success Story Single Mom Level Up Edition, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. I'm a mother of 3 wonderful daughters, and when my husband separated from me in 2017, he moved out on a Sunday, and the next morning my mother died unexpectedly. During this time, I was although in the middle of chemotherapy. Suddenly, I'm all alone with 3 small children. As a single mom and a businesswoman, I know firsthand how challenging and rewarding this journey can be. When I first became a single mom, I felt overwhelmed and uncertain about the future. But through support and consistency, I've managed to build a life that I'm proud of, both for myself and my 3 children. This podcast is all about celebrating the incredible stories of ambitious single moms who are not only raising their children with love and dedication, but also pursuing their dreams and building successful businesses. Each episode, we will dive into their journeys, exploring the heights and lows, the lessons learned, and the strategies they've used to overcome challenges. My goal is to inspire, motivate, and provide valuable insights for all the amazing single moms out there who are striving to create a better future for themselves and their families. Remember, you are not alone on this journey, and there are endless possibilities when you take charge of your life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Ambitious Single Moms Stories of Strength and Success. I've got today on the show Tasha Davies, and I'm so happy to have her with me because she has so many insights and things to share with you, and that's what this podcast is for, to share stories, to empower you as a single mom and to give you strength. So welcome Natasha or Tasha here on this show.
Oh, hi, Sonja. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and, as I say, to share my insights and my journey of entrepreneurship, solo momship, parenting, my awakening journey, all of those things.
Yeah, it's great that you're here because not everybody is prepared to share. Some other women are afraid, or I know a lot of German women who don't speak English very well. So where are you from?
So I'm here in South Wales in the UK.
Okay.
I've been here, well, I've lived in the UK all my life, but I've been in South Wales now for about 5-6 years.
Okay. So great that you are here and that you are going to share your story with us. So you're divorced, mom, but I guess in the meantime you are married again or in a relationship?
So I'm in a relationship now. Yep, I haven't remarried, but I am in a relationship, yep, for the last 2.5 years.
Okay, great. So we already spoke a bit about different topics, and what is it that you want to share with these beautiful women outside in the whole world? What is it that your heart is beating for?
Well, I think, first of all, I just want to take this moment to actually really celebrate women out there. I think, for the last, well, certainly the last few years that I've known it, but particularly maybe for the last decade or so, it's actually been really difficult for women. There's this expectation of needing to do it all, which has actually really diluted a lot of our essence because we are trying to be the businesswoman or the career woman. And there's an expectation of that as well. There's this expectation that, financially we're providing for our family, at least 50% if you're in a relationship, and maybe more than that if you're doing it solo. And then there's this expectation of, being the best mom you can be as well, and making sure your kids get to all the clubs that they need to go to, and making sure you're present and attentive to their emotional well-being. Whilst actually, for a lot of women, we're probably also really healing a lot of generational trauma around who we are and how we're seen in the world. And for every woman out there, that's going to look different. And I think it's really important to just celebrate every single person, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever part of the journey that you're on, whether you are single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you have or haven't got children. You have purpose here on this earth.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
a lot of our purpose is about who we're being. It's not what we're doing. It's not the career we've chosen. It's not the clients that we're servicing. It's exactly that. It's who we are being in that particular moment. That's the service that we're bringing to this earth. That's the purpose that we're bringing to this earth. So I just wanted to really celebrate all the women that will be listening, and maybe even some men out there as well that are just listening because they would like some insights into who we are and how we feel and how we engage maybe slightly differently in the world to the masculine. So yeah, that's kind of the position that I'm coming from.
Yeah, and that's so important because on the one hand, you have the woman who wants to achieve something, that wants to build something, and that's very in a masculine energy, and especially single moms, they have to present the father sometimes and the mother, and balancing between the female energy and the masculine, the male energy. That's, yeah, for me, everything is like a bit like a circle, because on the one hand, we want to be more feminine, and we know we shouldn't do too much because it's the man's position to do that. But now as a single mom, we have to do it. And of course, we also want to do more, because nowadays it's another time and situation than 200 years ago, where women, they even if a man dies, or there was no separation, so we were all in a family, young, and also the grandparents and everything. So it was a completely different situation also for women. They were not alone.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing, isn't it? Community. That's one of the biggest changes and that we've seen over the last few years. One of the things I always remember being told as I was growing up was it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And for a lot of women out there, we don't have that village anymore. And particularly, I don't know about you, but I've noticed since the COVID period, since the pandemic, that's even less. I see less people meeting out and about, community groups. I see a lot less accessibility and opportunity for women to get together, or even families to get together. I remember in my childhood, of a summer's evening, all the neighbors would be out in the square, and the kids, even of different ages, would all be playing various different games, or someone would light a barbecue and someone would bring drinks. And I really don't see that very much anymore. You walk the streets of an evening and it's quiet, and everybody's got their head down, or maybe their head on a screen, and you see less and less people sort of saying hello. And if you do, it's like someone looks at you and like, oh my God, are you crazy? So that's really tough, because now you're still parenting, you're still raising children, but you're doing it with far less access to that community wisdom that you would have had before. I'm fortunate. I'm beginning to build that community. I'm beginning to build a bit of a tribe, but my family lives over an hour away. And just last week I had an issue with, I'd got stuck in an accident on the motorway trying to get back. My youngest daughter was in nursery, and there was just no way I was going to get back to pick her up in time. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm really stuck. And so I ended up having to ring round, and it just so happened that one of her friend's mums who lives, just down the road was home, and she said, yeah, I can go and get her. That's fine. I'll bring her back here. There's no problems. But there was a time where I didn't have that. I wouldn't have had that access, and it would have been a lot more stressful to sort of work out, or I'd have to really plan my days to think, well, I can go. I was only 20 minutes down the road, but I was stuck in traffic for 2 hours. So, I can go over there, but what if there's a bridge that comes into South Wales? What if that gets closed? What if there's an accident? So having to kind of then think about all the possibilities, and your body just feels it. Then you're just in this constant state of stress where you really can't be present with what you want to experience because you're constantly thinking of the what ifs.
Yeah, and you can't secure every possibility.
No.
It's you also need the momentum. When something happens, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
And you just have to ask at that moment, who could I call? Who could help me? What could be the solution? And if you ask open questions, and if you are open for solutions, a lot of people are not. They're only seeing the negative. So it's always, that's another topic we want to speak today about is what's the word again, that we have to take responsibility.
Yeah. So, the notion, something that I teach all of my clients, it doesn't matter whether they're coming to see me for a physical health problem or an emotional well-being session or relationship coaching, is this idea behind radical responsibility, because it was the one thing that really began to change the trajectory of my life. Before this idea of taking responsibility for my experiences in life, I was the biggest victim to everything, to all circumstances, big and small, whether it's something going on the road or whether it's, a huge thing going on in my relationships. And this isn't to invalidate anybody's experience at all. Unfortunately, I've experienced an abusive relationship, and I don't want to take away from the fact that there are victims out there. But what I want to do is actually re-empower you by this idea of you can be responsible for the change in your life. You don't need to wait for somebody else to change, or you don't need to wait for somebody else to give you permission or to offer you opportunities in order to change how your life plays out. And just like you said, sometimes that looks like asking for the solution. Sometimes it looks like really surrendering in the moment and going, okay, right now, I don't know how to solve this. And in that moment of surrender, all the resistance disappears. The resistance to the problem disappears, and the solution will appear. Whether it's, all of a sudden you think, oh, actually, there's this friend I can call, or, oh, okay, well, I can move this money around here. And, or maybe you'll see an advert for something and you'll go, oh my goodness, that was exactly what I was looking for. So, our desires, we know the idea of manifestation is a huge thing. The industry is massive at the moment. And so this kind of idea of manifestation, whilst I believe in it, I believe that we are constantly manifesting. Our whole life is one big manifestation of, our belief systems, our conditioning, our programming, our choices that we make, our level of consciousness. But, this idea that kind of thoughts create reality, I think it doesn't go deep enough, because then we start panicking. We're like, oh my goodness, I just thought that, and I don't want that to happen at all. But your desires will come to you, and they will always find the path of least resistance. And so once you desire something, the moment you desire it, you've put it into motion. And the relationship between you receiving that and you first desiring it is the amount of resistance you have to it. And nearly all of us have resistance to certain aspects, whether it's money or relationships, maybe even housing, things like that. The what we call the big things. There will be a degree of resistance depending on what you've already experienced in life, because you've got this sort of bag full of pre-programmed ideas as to how things should be, or what you've already experienced, or perhaps what your parents have told you life is like. And so when you put that desire into motion, I will guarantee that those things will come up to the surface. And it's for you to then go, okay, I see what this is doing. This, all of my belief systems, all of my generational trauma, all of that type of stuff is coming up to the surface to be seen, because this is what's in the way of me then allowing that desire to come into fruition. And the more we surrender to that, the easier it comes about. But actually, a lot of us don't know how to surrender. Most of us put up resistance because we think we need to control, we need to micromanage. And I was like, I put my hands up, I was one of the worst. It's one of the biggest things I've had to really get a grasp of is that balance between letting life unfold and trusting and having faith, whilst also being responsible for the fact that, okay, in some way I've created this. So the question I always ask is actually, how is this for me?
Yeah.
Whereas before I'd probably have asked, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And just that shift, that really small shift, how is this for me? Like you say, you start opening up possibilities. For me, I'm not religious, but I have really grounded my relationship with God over the last couple of years. I've really come back to the divine. And I think a lot of people do through an awakening process. Maybe they go one way or the other. Either they kind of come away from it completely, particularly if they've been raised in a secular religion. But I certainly came full circle, and that trust in the divine, the universe, spirit, whatever, God, whatever you want to call it, is hugely foundational.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I believe as well. It's very important. And yeah, I had a cancer diagnosis, and that helped me also on my personal development during the past 7 years.
Yeah.
Very, very important to have something you believe into that gives you strength. And yeah, you said something you desire. And I think so many women don't know what they desire. They don't have a vision. And that's something I want to work more with women to find out that vision. When I had cancer, my husband left me, so I had 2 very hard situations in your life, being a single mom and also being sick or ill with cancer. And I had no vision. I didn't know what were my childhood dreams, what really fulfills me. And I had no role model I could look up, and I didn't feel anything. I felt empty. And I think so many women, they just get up in the morning, they know what they have to do. And I already felt like that before I got cancer, before I got divorced or separated. And I think so many people live their daily life without having a big vision for their life and knowing what are my dreams, what is my heart beating for. And even if you have such a dream, you don't dare to speak about it, because already as a small child you hear, oh, stop dreaming, be realistic. And
yeah, so I was the world's biggest people pleaser. Throughout my experience in childhood, it was a development of learned behavior, as what I see it as now, in that it was a way of keeping me safe. So whilst I can look back and be grateful for it, It also had a lot of downsides and very much played into some of the more negative experiences that I had in life. So the breakdown of my marriage and then the subsequent abusive relationship, for example. Because through people pleasing, I often abandoned myself. So I learned that my safety was only guaranteed if I was keeping other people happy. So if they were emotionally stable, then I was okay. But what that led to was, as I say, a huge amount of self-abandonment. And just like you were explaining there, I lost any vision. And so I started doing things that I thought I should do, or that I thought other people would be proud of me, particularly my parents at the time. It was, I went to do a university course that, I'd almost been really unconsciously led into, because it was like, this will be a great career for you. You're hugely academic. You're super smart. You can go and do this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, okay. And, we won't go into it now, but if anybody knows anything about human design, I'm a projector, and I'm actually also have an ego authority and a 5-1 profile. So I have this kind of double projection field where if someone kind of shares with me their dreams, their beliefs, or what, I kind of absorb them, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll run with that. That sounds like a good idea. Because anything outside of that wasn't safe for me. The idea of following my own dreams. And so I quashed them so much that I was in my 30s before I really started to think about, well, what do I like? What fills me up? What lights me up? As a child, I was a dancer. I danced for probably about 15 years, and I loved it. And I never felt more alive than when I was on stage. But I kept being told, well, you'll never make a career out of this. It's not going to give you any sort of lifestyle. You're going to have to be so much better to make it, or whatever the story was. So I really started to quash that and look for a more academic route. And then I wondered why I never felt fulfilled. I was overachieving in everything that I did, but it never felt enough. So then it was like, okay, well, maybe it's because I want a family. So we go get married, and I'll settle down, and I'll have children. And then you're still feeling this kind of emptiness.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what a lot of women are seeking. And we're taught to seek it in relationship. Oh, when you find the man of your dreams, and, everything's going to be wonderful. And then, quite often we just self-abandon even more then, particularly when we have children. It's one of the most selfless tasks that you can do. So learning to fill my own cup, and learning that, and it was a bit of a journey for me, actually, understanding that I really didn't know what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want because of my experience, and I could be really grateful for that and go, well, okay, I can look back at that and say, that's not what I want.
Yeah,
but I
that's
didn't
important.
know what I did want, which meant I didn't have a focus. I had, my energy just kept going to what I didn't want. And of course, then that just kept playing out time and time again. So it was learning to go, okay, that's not what I want. So let's have a think about what it is I do want.
Yeah.
And I've always had a really strong inner vision. So I could start having a think about what that looks like. So I might put myself somewhere. I might, imagine a certain circumstance happening. But the biggest thing for me was beginning to think about how I wanted to feel. So rather than focusing on, well, I want this relationship and it has to look like this and this and this, it's like, no, I want to feel. The feminine, we talked a little bit before about this balance of masculine and feminine, but the feminine really wants to feel. And at my core, that's who I am. I'm core feminine essence. And so I started to think about, okay, well, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to feel safe? What does it feel like to feel abundance? What does it feel like to have security? And all of those things that I'd perhaps been lacking. And it was at that moment where then things started to sort of unfold, and different people were coming into my life, or opportunities were coming into my life. So yeah, that kind of idea behind really understanding how you want to feel
Mhm.
and letting that play out and letting that lead, because then we don't get attached to how things should play out,
Mhm.
or what they should look like. You know, I want a relationship and it has to be with this person and they have to have this much money and they have to live in this location or whatever the case may be. And instead it was like, no, I want to feel like this. And however that happens, I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah, and so many single moms, they feel guilty, and that's often the major feeling they feel. And I started meditating some years ago, and yeah, that's when I realized, or I'm meditating, I'm doing Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's also teaching, yeah, it's about the emotions you're feeling, and you have to change the emotions. And when you always feel the emotions from yesterday, and for example, the guilt, and that you don't feel good enough, and all this, yeah, it's so important to change your own energy in order to get a new life.
And the quickest way we can change the energy is by surrendering to what is. Certainly for me as an energy practitioner, and as a trauma practitioner, a lot of the work I do is allowing my clients to feel safe in experiencing those negative emotions, to let the energy move through the body, because that's what it wants to do. Your body is this container for energy. And you know, if you have a fizzy drink, for example, it's okay when it starts still, but if you shake it up and then take the lid off, it's going to explode. So we have to find a way of, you know, grounding that energy and letting it flow where it needs to, because if we don't, that's when we get stuck. The energy gets stuck, and it will tell you it's stuck by a physical manifestation. So you know, very sadly experienced yours as cancer. For me, it was autoimmune disease. And, you know, for a lot of people, you know, we know there's been a huge rise in autoimmune disease, things like fibromyalgia, you know, digestive problems, suicides, you know, all, I mean, suicide rates are massive at the moment. I'm not going to go too in depth in that, but a lot of it is because we have this chronic suppressed energy in our body because we've never been taught how to fully process emotions. And let that energy move through our body. So what we do is when a negative emotion comes up because it doesn't feel safe, whether it's anger or sadness or grief or guilt or frustration, we make it wrong, we reject it, and we shut it down.
We swallow it down.
We absolutely swallow it down, particularly women.
Yeah.
You know, imagine an angry woman. Oh my goodness, it's just unheard of, right? No. We don't want to see an angry woman. So you shut it down. And then what happens is we end up with this, you know, it holds in the tissue, it holds in the DNA, and it's got to get through somehow. So then you start with chronic pain or inflammation or chronic fatigue, all of these symptoms. And then what we do is we go to the doctor and we say, well, we're having the symptoms, and the doctor treats the symptom and never really gets to the root cause. And then quite often on top of that, they'll give you a diagnosis. So then you've got a label for what you're experiencing. And then on top of that, often it's well, there's no cure for this either. And so you trust these practitioners, and all along the way, you're kind of going, well, now this is who I am. And you develop this identity, which is someone who has an autoimmune disease or someone who has some sort of chronic disease. And then this is what my life's going to look like. So for me, I really empower my clients to go, well, this is what it looks like now, but it doesn't need to. And there is a way forward. And just because your GP doesn't have the answers doesn't mean there isn't one.
Yeah. Yeah, you just said it, the labeling. Either you have the label, oh, you have cancer, then the label single mom. That's what I was writing about a few weeks or days ago on my profile on Facebook. Yeah, the label saying, okay, she's a single mom now, and this and that and this and that. it's normal that you are stressed. It's normal that you don't have money. It's normal that you this and that. And that's what we should, we should take the label off and throw it away and focus on the life we want to have. And everything is for everybody possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We have access to everything. In fact, I just watched something a couple of days ago that says there was a study that showed that our memories aren't necessarily stored in our brain. They're stored in the electromagnetic field, so in your astral field, which suggests then that we have access to everything.
Absolutely.
So all wisdom is stored in our energetic field, and it's about how much we have access to that. So how much we've shut ourselves down will directly reflect the access that we have to that information, to that wisdom. And I think, just going back to the labeling, what happens is you then create a community based on symptoms, like similar symptoms. So everyone will group together and say, oh yeah, I've got this disease too. And then everyone starts chatting and like, oh yeah, I have this and I have this and I have this, which then confirms your identity. So it validates your experience. So support groups are great, but actually they can be really unhelpful too if they keep you stuck. So if actually you're using the support group as a validation tool, as opposed to is there a solution here? And if you think about it a bit like if your life's a script and someone's just given you that label of chronic disease, then you've suddenly become this character and your mind will go, well, how does someone with chronic disease act? How do they behave? And it might not be straight away, it might be slowly. You'll start developing all those the key roles of somebody who identifies as having a chronic disease. And it's once you've started to do that, it's actually really difficult to come back out of it because you build your life around that identity. And then when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm done with this, and I did it, I'm done with this. I need to heal this. I don't want this to be what the rest of my life looks like. And there was lots of things I had to do. And part of the whole radical responsibility movement for me was, okay, what do I need to let go of in order to heal? Or what does healing this mean I'm going to have to let go of? And part of it was like the special relationships between my specialists and I, financial support that I may have been given for chronic disease, all of that type of stuff, maybe the community that I'd built, the way I talked about myself and things like that. So and that's really scary for some people, because for some people, their whole life becomes this based around this identity, whether it's illness or whether it's their relationships or what they've experienced, whether it's because they're a single mom or whether it's because they've gone through a horrible divorce or anything like that, really. Even not having money, more often than not, most of us would say, oh, we would love more money. But actually, when it comes to it, the actions people take don't reflect that. And they won't even realize it's because unconsciously it's far safer for them to stay having no money than it is to go out there and really run the risk of failure sometimes and have that money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many topics or areas where you have to develop yourself, but the most important thing is that you at least start somewhere. And maybe as a single mom, we have a lot of problems with money, for example, or self-worth, self-love. Just pick one and start with it. It's so important to go on that journey for personal development. And we just spoke a lot also about energy work. Yeah, for someone who has nothing to do with energy and the universe and everything, it sounds scary maybe, or they can't connect. but
Mm.
it's something really I can recommend, at least to have a look into it and see how successful other people are using the universal laws, for example. And
Yeah, I very much highly recommend starting there. And what I would say to anybody who was maybe a bit skeptical or didn't believe it is like, try it out. You
absolutely.
know, for me, I came to it because there was a moment, and I remember it so clearly. I was sat in my kitchen just not long after I'd fled from this abusive relationship. And I said to myself, I'm the common denominator in this.
Mhm.
In all of my experiences in life, I am the common denominator. So what does that say about me and my belief systems? And then I went down this whole sort of rabbit hole about, energy and emotions and them kind of dictating your behavior. And that's where I really began to study trauma and its impact on our behavior. I'd been nursing for 13 years before that. So I had a lot of experience with patients that would repeatedly visit for chronic disease and the lack of access to treatment for them. But yeah, start kind of asking, well, who's the common denominator? Particularly for relationships. If you continually cycle through poor relationships, there's got to be a moment where you go, this can't just all be about them.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, you can sit there and say, well, I keep picking poor men or poor women or whatever. I keep picking the same people. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what we do. We pick the same people in a different body and expect different results.
Yeah.
But the reason we're picking them is because of something that's activated within us. So it could be a childhood wound. It could be a relationship with your mother or your father, for example. It could be that you've got a fear of rejection or an abandonment wounding, a lack of self-esteem. All of those things will play a part in the type of partners that you're choosing and the type of behavior that you tolerate within a relationship as well.
Yeah.
So once you establish that you are the common denominator, and again, this is not to victimize anybody, this is not to invalidate experience, it's to really empower those people to say, you can choose differently. There is a way out. It doesn't have to continue to look like this. When we blame other people, we completely disempower ourselves because we're saying that we don't have any control over what's happening. And therefore we let fate just continue to happen. Oh, it's just fate. It's just fate. It's just fate. It's like, well, maybe there's an aspect of that, but you can change things. So why not empower yourself? Why not go and test out the universal laws? Go and try it. Try and disprove them. So the biggest thing for me is disprove it. Show me that it absolutely doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tasha. So what are you doing professionally? You are a coach as well, I guess?
Yeah, so a lot of my work involves coaching. And my kind of official title is a trauma-informed psychosomatic practitioner, which kind of covers all those sort of juicy areas that we've talked about. So I will see people in person. I do a lot of somatic work with people in my clinic here in South Wales. I also see people online. We can do somatic work online. It's absolutely possible. But a lot of that work is more sort of along the transformational coaching lines. And I have just started to set up a community of sort of like-minded, conscious souls called the Soul Embodied Integrative Academy. And the reason for doing that is one of the things that I really struggled with at the beginning of my awakening journey, my healing journey, was that lack of support, that lack of community, that kind of feeling like I was really isolated and no one else is going through this and I don't know who to talk to. Particularly when we're talking about things like shadow work and healing our traumas, and what does that look like, and how can that, the things that happen to our body when we go through that, and when it looks like everything's collapsing around us and it's we must be doing something wrong because it's all collapsing. So I've set up the Soul Embodied Integrative Academy. I've actually got a masterclass going live today, which is all about radical responsibility. I uncover the core paradigm that keeps most of us stuck in our cyclical behavior and give you the tools to really liberate yourself from that as well. A lot of coaches will tell you why things are happening and won't necessarily give you the tools to be able to move you forward. So you're left kind of going, well, now I know why. So intellectually you understand it, but you have no idea how to action it, put it into practice.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's my intention with the academy, is to be able to really give people the tools. So I'll be inviting along experts in various different fields and obviously sharing my own experience, my own work as well. And so whether that's, as I say, people have got physical health problems, relationships, perhaps they're just going through this awakening process and they feel super alone and they don't know what to do with it, and they just want a little bit of community, a bit of guidance, then that's definitely a space for them. It's a private group, so it's not accessible to everybody. It's not public. If you just want to see the work that I'm doing and you're not quite ready to step into that sort of group environment, my page, Tasha Marie Healing, really is a way of just viewing and consuming the content that I provide for free. And then if you decide you want a little bit more work, you can sort of send me a message or whatever, and we can work one-to-one together as well.
Okay, great. That sounds great. So thank you, Tasha, for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Ambitious Single Moms, Stories of Strength and Success. It's been an absolute pleasure having Tasha Davies here share her incredible journey and insights with us today. I hope you found her story as inspiring and empowering as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts and any questions you have for our guest, Tasha. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. All the links and additional resources about Tasha and myself can be found in the show notes below. And your support means the world to us and helps us continue bringing you amazing content. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep thriving. See you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on Ambitious Single Moms, Stories of Strength and Success. Let's embark on this journey together and rediscover the magic in our lives. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode.